Hello everyone. I hope that you're doing amazing wherever you are in the world. My name is Boom Shikha, as you might know, and I welcome you to my channel. I'm really grateful that you're listening, subscribing, and commenting. And if you're interested in forming a deeper relationship with me and with my products, then you're more than welcome to go to my membership site, which is Soul Vitamins. It's linked in the description below. And as usual, I wanted to do a video that's a bit calming and a bit introspective, a little bit abstract, but also teaches you something, hopefully, or at least teaches me something about myself, because I always learn about myself whenever I do these videos. And I wanted to do it next to the ocean because I'm finding that the ocean is extremely healing right now for me. And I feel like my creative juices are flowing more when I'm next to the ocean. There's so many different things that I notice when I come to Mexico versus when I'm in Thailand, versus when I'm in Canada. And it's really interesting to me because, a lot of times when you look at a city or a country from the outside in, you just look at the pictures that are online, or you go through Google Maps and go through the city street view, you look at it and you're like, oh, this is what it looks like. Oh, I see, this is how it looks like. All right, cool, awesome. And you might imagine or pretend or believe that you know the city because you've seen the pictures, or you've met a person from there and you've kind of talked to them for a bit and you're like, yeah, I know a lot about the city, about the culture, about the place, about the way it smells, about the way it looks, about the way it behaves, the way it moves, the way it ebbs and flows through the day and through the week. But of course you don't, right? And I think that's one of the reasons why digital nomads or travelers or wanderlusters, we like to move from place to place, but also we like to live in different places. And that's one of the reasons why I love living in different places as well. It's because you really don't know what a city or country is like until you actually live there. You might imagine you do, but you really don't. Yeah, I have lots of people who are friends of mine who are Mexican, or Mexican Canadian, or Mexican American. And so, I talk to all these people and, I'm like, oh yeah, like how's Mexico? And then they tell me the little things here and there about the culture. And I'm like, oh yeah, I'm well versed in Mexico and I know a little bit about the culture. Not everything, but I thought I knew a little bit. And then I've never actually lived in Mexico in such a way before, where I'm completely immersed in the culture. So I'm actually living in Puerto Vallarta right now, and it's been almost 2 months now. Wow, time passes by so quickly. And so I'm here, and as I said, I'm learning all these things about the culture, about the place that no one would ever know if they actually didn't live in the place. I'm living or staying in an area called Cinco de Diciembre, so 5th December, and it's one of the older parts of town, obviously. It's a very local area, which is why I love it, because there's lots of culture, and it feels like I'm living actually in Mexico rather than in an Americanized version of it, which is how it sometimes feels when you go to Cancun or when you go to Tulum or places like that. I sometimes feel like I'm in America, but like I'm in Mexico, but I'm like an Americanized version of Mexico. Like what Americans would believe Mexico looks like, that's what I'm in, right? But in this 5th December place, Cinco de Diciembre, it feels like I'm actually in Mexico, right? And of course, because I'm actually in Mexico, it is loud. And I'm not saying that Mexicans are loud or Mexico is loud all the time, but it is very loud a lot of the times, a lot of the day, and a lot of the night actually sometimes as well. And it's kind of hilarious because, of course, we have roosters right next to us, which is something that I've kind of gotten used to in Mexico. When I was in Sayulita as well, we had roosters. When I was in Mexico, other parts of Mexico as well, I remember in the past that I had roosters around me. And so obviously it's become like a part of like my visual of like Mexico. There's gonna be roosters around. And then, of course, there's also lots of dogs. And I asked a Mexican person about it. They're like, yeah, they use them for security, but I don't know how much security they do. They just end up barking at everything that comes around, which is what I've noticed. I just sit there, I'm like, what are you barking at? Of course, they're barking at the stray dogs that are coming around, or they're barking at, things around them. Anyone who passes by, sometimes they're barking at. I'm sure they have a reason for it, but I don't get it myself. But it ends up that, at some points of the day, there is like music blasting from a place nearby, or someone's house, because they just love blasting their music, which is interesting. And then the music blasting, there'll be the roosters crowing, and it might be the middle of the day or in the middle of the night. It doesn't really matter because the roosters are up at all times of day and night. I have no idea what they're doing. And then the dogs are barking as well. And there's about 5 or 6 dogs around us, and all of them are barking at the same time at something or the other. And I'll just be sitting in my room. I'll have my earplugs on because that's what I do a lot of times, because I'm like, oh my God, I can't handle all this noise. And I'll just be sitting there and there's like all of this noise reverberating around me. And I just wonder to myself, I'm just here for a few months, so it's okay. But I just wonder, like, for the people who are local, who actually live there, do they get used to this sound? Do they get used to the dogs and the roosters and the music and the people yelling and doing all those things? Does it become commonplace so that they don't even hear it anymore? Like, are they just so used to it that it's like white noise to them? I really do wonder about that, actually. Or do they even like have an issue with it, even if they've been living there for a while? And so, of course, as I said, for me, I'll just put earplugs on and I'll drown out the noise with music or something. And it's okay, mostly okay, unless I'm doing yoga and I'm like, oh my God, I need to put earplugs on because it's so loud. But it really is fascinating because I would never have known this about Mexico, or about Puerto Vallarta at least, or about this area that I'm in, unless I actually lived there. Other random things that I've already mentioned in other videos about how water has to be delivered by these companies that are owned by Coca-Cola, apparently. It's called Seal, and it's owned by Coca-Cola. And they come around and they yell, Seal, Seal, and then you have to, if you don't hear them, then you miss them. If you hear them, awesome, you get the water. And a lot of times, we're at work or I'm on a call or I have music on and I don't hear them come through, which means that, okay, cool, we don't have water for another day. Which is, I'm like, damn it. And a lot of times, like, I just want to call someone and get water delivered. Can I not do that, please? So that's kind of interesting. It's like, it's a little bit frustrating, but also kind of fascinating that this is how it works. It's just the way it works, and you just have to adapt yourself to it. And of course, like, what happens as a human being, for me at least, because I've lived in many different places, I always compare and contrast. So I'm like, oh, this is how it works here. That's not how it works over there. Or that's not how it works in Thailand. Or that's not how it works in Canada. Of course, that's a foolish notion because it's not supposed to be the same. Otherwise, if it was the same everywhere, then why would I move? Why would I live in different places? I wouldn't. I would live in the same place because there would be no point, right? So, of course, the reason I'm actually traveling and moving and going to different places is not so that everything can be the same, but so I can experience the differences or the dissimilarities in between all these places, and realize, wow, even though we might look the same, human beings in all of these different cultures, we might look the same, we might kind of dress the same, we might perhaps even speak the same language, but we're so different in so many different ways. And the culture is set up so differently, and the roads are set up so differently, and the way the food is distributed is set up so differently, the stores are set up so differently. It's just such an interesting contrast. And as I said, like, I really do believe that you have to live in the country for a few months at least in order to really understand the country, understand how it works, understand what the functions are like, what the infrastructure is like, how the people live, how the people behave, what is it like during nighttime, what is it like during daytime. It really needs an immersion of culture in order for you to understand, oh, this is what it's like. Oh, fascinating. So I wanted to share a little bit of that with you because I know, unfortunately, because of COVID, a lot of people can't travel, but I really do believe that travel is actually a very important thing because it makes you understand the culture more than you would ever understand them by watching a video or having a friend who's from that place. You really need to live in the place to understand, oh, this is what they'll actually look like. And I think even then, even if I was living in Mexico for years on end, I would still not be able to completely understand the culture because I'd always be an outsider. I'd always be like person from the outside, and really even in Thailand I've lived there for years and I still feel like an outsider because the culture is so ingrained in them that they don't even think about it twice, so it's normal to them. For me, I'm looking at it, I'm like, why do you do things that way? And no one ever explains things to you because they don't even think about it. It's normal to them. Why would they explain how things work, right? But this is just the fun part about it. This is the fun thing about traveling, and I love it so much, and I'm so grateful that even if I don't get to travel as much as I really want to because of the pandemic, I am at least grateful that I can move to another place and live there and experience it for a little bit. And hopefully you like the beach in the background. And hopefully it wasn't too loud. I think that's all I wanted to say in this video. Again, I'm so grateful for your support, for your help, for everything. I'm really grateful, and I shall see you in the next one. Bye for now.